Hello, welcome to the Mediocre Takes podcast, the podcast where we share our mediocre takes on the shows and movies we watch. I'm Marco and I'm here with my co-host Mal. How are you doing, Mal?
So, if you are into butch femme relationships and you really want to get into lesbian erotica, read The Harder She Comes. It has a lot of, I don't know what you'd call it, it's like an anthology or whatever, but it has a lot of short stories from a lot of different erotica writers. And I can promise you'll find at least three stories that you'll really like. That's all I have to say. Happy Pride!
As a lesbian ally, I approve of this message.
I thought you were just gonna say you were a lesbian.
No, I said as a lesbian ally, I approve of this message.
I know, I'm sorry. I saw the fist go up and I heard as a lesbian. Back on track, Marco. Jeez.
Okay. Anyways, you guys, today we're going to be talking about the lesbian film Saving Face. This is about like two Chinese Americans and their romance, and it's also about the relationship between the main character Will and her mother Elon, I think. Honestly, I searched up how to pronounce it and it came up as Elon, but that doesn't sound right. So I'm just going to call her mother.
I think I made the same mistake as you. I think it's Weilon.
Weilon?
But neither of us are Chinese.
Yeah. So we're just gonna be referring to her
know.
as like the mother. Anyways, let's get started with the movie. This movie starts off with our main character Will doing a face mask. We cut to two women discussing Will's marriage options, and they try to set up Will with a man. Will and her mom go to a dance where we meet Will's grandma and grandpa. Will sees a woman who she fancies. Will and a man she's set up with dance, but Will takes this poorly and switches with someone else. We learn that Will's father has passed away, so Will works at a hospital. We cut to Will at the hospital where we learn that Will's mom was at a clinic recently. Vivian drops by Will's work, which is the girl Will fancied at the dance. Will goes home and she sees her mom there. So when Will comes home, she can tell there's something wrong with her mom. She calls her grandma, and we find out that Will's mom is pregnant. The grandpa doesn't take this well and gets mad at the mom. The grandpa kicks the mother out of the house. We meet a neighbor and we learn that Will's mother will be staying with Will until she gets married or has a baby or something. We cut to Will being back at the hospital when she gets a note from Vivian to meet up with her. The neighbor comes to have dinner with Will and the mother. Will's mom says some racist remarks towards the neighbor since he's black. We cut to Vivian and Will meeting up. We learn that Vivian's dad is Will's boss. Meanwhile, Will's mom is going to a movie to buy Chinese films. She finds a porn film and buys it.
That entire shop was just for porn videos.
Oh, really? I thought it was just Chinese films. Really?
It was a porn shop. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I don't think they're popular anymore. I don't think they have, well, obviously because Pornhub, but it used to be a thing back then, Marco. This was in 2005.
Yeah, I thought that was just a regular like Blockbuster or something. I don't know. But yeah, that does kind of make sense why there's that there. Okay, so you said that we should probably watch this movie first because it's kind of sad and depressing, and I don't really see it that way. Like, I'm kind of curious why you find it depressing. Like, at the end of the day, Will gets the girl, and Will's mom somewhat seems to change her ways, which makes me think this is more like an uplifting tale. I just don't really see why you said that this was a sad movie, and I'm kind of wondering why you said that.
I, as an individual, don't believe in doing research. So I just sort of like based off the things that I kind of watched, because I've seen a lot of people recommend this and I've seen like little snippets. Marco, it is a lesbian film. I just sort of assumed, like I put if 2 + 2 is 4, right? Then this should have ended very sad. But this is not Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Okay. So yeah, I gave you false news. So what? Get over it.
Okay, so I saw an interview by the writer/director of Saving Face, and her name is Alice Wu, and she says this is supposed to be like a romantic comedy, and I was like, huh? The movie does not give me comedy vibes at all. Well, sometimes it is comedic, but most of the time it isn't. It feels kind of serious as a movie, especially since Will's mom literally gets kicked out of her family for being pregnant. There's a dichotomy of what Alice Wu was going for and what the movie actually ended up being. Like, the only really funny part I found is when, like, Will's mom was getting porn, and that's it. Something that really bothered me in this movie was the anti-blackness Will's mom shows towards the neighbor. I feel like it's very common for non-black POCs to have anti-black sentiments when it comes to black people. What really bothered me about this is that even though the movie clearly wants us to think that Will's mom is in the wrong for the way she treats the neighbor, her views on black people has never really changed challenged. I want Will to say that that's wrong or something.
First of all, I have so much nostalgia for 2000s era films, so this was such a treat to watch visually. Something I really liked about the beginning scenes is that they give you time to understand the main character. Eye contact. The first scene we get between our two love interests, it was eye contact. And it's one of the most homoerotic acts, right in between lingering touches and religious imagery. As someone with no good, very bad mommy issues, I'm gonna be honest with you, I kind of like blacked out during those moments where the mom was yelling at Will. And here's the thing is there are a lot of scenes in this film that is spoken in Chinese and you read the subtitles. Literally, I was reading the subtitles, but I could tell that what was being said was very negative, so I just sort of like it literally went in one ear and out the other. But hey, pretty accurate, you know. Also, one thing I think this movie did really well with was giving the background characters a purpose and personality in the story. They're gossiping for the most part, but we get to know them through it, and it's used as a tool in the movie to move information around, which was like really fun to watch. It's very reminiscent of high school, but funner because I'm not involved in it. I didn't look too much into this film when I suggested we review it, so the mom getting pregnant was like a huge surprise to me. I didn't even know the mom was going to be like a pretty important part of the story. Boss's daughter is something I feel like I only see in like heterosexual films, so I love that lesbians who love that trope can watch a movie with it instead of reading fan fiction about it. Also, yeah, we get a double whammy romance trope, a boss's daughter, and like childhood, like acquaintances. I would say childhood something, right? Because, I mean, they kiss, which I feel like, yeah, they were like 6 or 5 or whatever. But she gave her a little smooch on the cheek after she saved her from bullies. That's definitely a trope of something. Also, Will's gay panic is so relatable. First time I ever realized this film existed. A GIF on Tumblr, a website that I unironically use, of the falling scene where she falls onto the floor to get out of an intimate situation with Vivian. When they're talking in the suit shop, they talk about Vivian's mom, and Will is like, why didn't she leave? And Vivian's like, where would she go? I think that is such a line that is like very impactful and full of a lot of baggage, especially when you're a minority in an environment where everything around you is so different from what you've known your entire life. Even if something bad happens, like in your environment, you're afraid to branch out because that's what you've known basically your whole life. So it's like, I guess I'll suffer here where I'm familiar with everything instead of going out there.
Vivian teaches Will how to fall without hurting herself. They kiss. We cut to Will's mom watching porn. It's the next day and we cut to Will and Vivian going on another date. We also cut to Will's mom going to the clinic with Will and her being judged by other people. Then it's the next day and Will's mom says she's having a little party with her friends tonight, and Will says she won't be home until late. Then Will sees Vivian on her birthday and they talk about the fact that Vivian's friends think that Will doesn't exist. Then she goes to the hospital and realizes that she won't be able to see Vivian on her birthday. Will decides to stay the night with Vivian. It's the next day and Will is at the hospital talking to her coworkers, trying to get her mom to go on a date with someone. We see Will's mom go on multiple dates and all of them goes poorly. Will's mom thinks she's going to be a terrible mother. Vivian tells Will that she wants to meet her mom. We cut to Vivian and Will having dinner with her mom. It goes poorly as well. The neighbor asks Will why doesn't she tell her mother that she's a lesbian, but we find out that Will's mom already knows she's a lesbian because she caught her having sex with someone. She didn't take it well and she's been trying to set her up with men ever since. Will's mom goes on another date and it ends up going somewhat well. Will goes to see Vivian and we learn that Vivian got a gig at Paris, meaning she'll be leaving soon. Okay, so I hate sex scenes in movies and TV shows, and this one I didn't like as well, but I will say I think I was prepared for it a bit more since I'm so used to seeing sex scenes now because of the movies you make me watch. I love that this movie wasn't only about the lesbian romance, but it's more about the relationship between Will and her mom. It's really refreshing since most queer media is about the romance and nothing else. I love it when queer media has more going on than just the romance. I love Will's gay panic when Vivian asks her to fall.
One of the biggest issues or drama or whatever in this is the whole, oh my god, Vivian wanting to be out and proud and Will being like, oh, maybe not, which is something I feel like we've already established I fucking hate so much. It's really annoying. Also, I think the dating inside your race thing is so funny to me. Yeah, it's a very popular thing in many communities, sadly. I come from a mixed race family, so my mom, who's like half black, half white, was so dead set, literally since childbirth, for me to, get this, Marco, marry a nice white Christian man. Which I thought was really funny that she went to the white route, but that's definitely like light skinned behavior. I like how we get to see Will's mom sort of try to escape her life through watching all of these soap operas. It feels like the the soap operas really kind of helped inspired her to, as we see in the future of the film, follow her heart instead of what is expected of her. Colorism and racism sadly exists in all minority groups. The first scene where, what was it, Will's mom made those comments, I understood it, but I also felt like they were setting it up to make her become a better person and change who she was. So that didn't really bother me. What I like is we do get to see her change a little bit with how she acts around him when she's coming back from one for dates. Before the date can get closer to her, he comes out and is like, oh, hey there. And then the guy like runs off. And then Jay says that he was like, what was it? Lumpy or something. And she laughs at him and she's like, yeah. So we see a little bit of that progress. Also, listen, I feel like he was able to sidestep the black sidekick trope. I think that he was tastefully involved enough for him to just sort of like to show what needed to be shown in this film, but he wasn't there in a way where it felt like he really was trying to influence what was happening and be like, oh, I got you, girl. Let me tell you this. You need to do that. I'm here for you. It wasn't like that, so that was nice. As we all know, fashion trends from the past always make a comeback, but I swear on all that is good in this life, if low-rise pants ever come back into fashion, we'll be committing felonies. Also, again, with the background characters gossiping, as I said before, that is how we find. It seems like it's always happening to Will too, where a background character is how she figures out something is happening. So with the kid, that's how she finds out that Vivian is going to Paris, which, I don't know, just the fact that that is where she's getting her information is so funny to me.
Will's mom asks her to go to the salon to see her friends. Her friends talk trash about Will's mom. We found out that no one went to the party Will's mom had. We learned that Vivian's deadline is Friday for the Paris recital or something like that. Will goes to the hospital and we learned that the grandma is not feeling that well. Vivian's dad kind of threatens Will and tells her that if Vivian doesn't go to Paris, then she'll never understand her greatness. The grandma makes Will promise she won't tell her mother that the grandma is not feeling well or that she's in the hospital. Will ignores Vivian because she's scared. Vivian is calling Will, but Will ignores Vivian because she's scared of like being out and proud. Vivian breaks up with Will. Will comes out to her mom and tells her that she's gay. Will's mom doesn't take this well. They get a call and go to the hospital to find out that the grandma is dead. We find out that Will's mom is getting married and Will isn't invited. Will finds a note revealing who the real father is. Will crashes the wedding and she thinks that old Yu is the father and says so. Then we find out that the real father is old Yu's son. Will's mom says that she can't go through with the marriage. They run away from the wedding. Will says that her mom can't live with her anymore. Will's mom realizes how she was wrong and tries one last time to get Vivian and Will back together. They make it to the airport. Vivian tells Will to kiss her in front of all these people. Will isn't able to do it. Vivian leaves and Will cries to her mom. It's 3 months later and Will has to go to another one of those dances. Will sees Vivian. Will asks Vivian to dance with her. They dance and people are homophobic and they kiss happily. One thing I will give this movie credit for is that it is unapologetically Chinese and I really appreciate that. Most of the characters are Chinese, the story revolves around Chinese culture, and I feel like because of how Chinese this story is, it is so much better and wouldn't be the same if it wasn't as Chinese. The scene where Will's mom rejects Will for being a lesbian is so frustrating to watch. I was so annoyed and I thought it would be a sad film, but it ended up being really happy. I will say that Will's mom got what she deserved after Will refuses to let her live with her. Like, obviously she changes her way and tries to help with Will's relationship. She was still a little frustrating.
Something about the line, your hot dog got cold, so I fed it to the birds, made me LOL out loud. And you know, honestly, I can't get mad at Will. Like, I will always be on the side of the person who's too scared to make the next step. I understand having that hesitance, and I also understand feeling like you're being forced into something before you're ready. I'm on Will's side. Always have been, always will be. When Will read the note and it brought up age gap, I literally, like IRL, gasped and said, "Little you?" And then Will said, "Old you." And my immediate thought was like, how the fuck? Like, logistically, he is too old. But it was also a good setup because the reveal that it was actually little you at the wedding was so funny to watch. I like how Will finally stood up for herself. I think her journey was natural. Her timeline made sense for her. I love how Will's mom also not only stood up for herself against her dad and grew as an individual by coming around with Will. We also saw that growth beforehand with like her sitting and watching her soaps with Jay. It was not so slay for Vivian to demand Will to kiss her in public. If someone is not ready, they're not ready. And it will always be something that irritates me because whenever that is a conflict in a film or a show, it is always portrayed that the person who's not ready is the person in the wrong in this situation. I just think that is not a very good narrative to always have. But hey, it all worked out in the end. We got our happy ending, and the last line of the film was so good. You know what? Also, by the way, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. She also wrote the half of it, which is not even as half as good as this film. It is much more easier to create a film that portrays like racial experiences in America now. So the fact that this was a film written about like an Asian experience and also a lesbian experience in 2005 and also had like nudity, I felt like that was that was like pretty progressive. The reason I feel like I did not hear about this film sooner, and the reason why it's not really on like a lot of people's lists of recommendations of lesbian films to watch, I don't think there's a single white person in this film. The nurses, there were like a couple white nurses or something, and that was it. They had such minor parts, they weren't that integral to the story, and it was a happy ending. I really do believe that those are the two reasons why this isn't in a lot of people's recommendations, and that is it. You guys should watch it. It's so good. If you have a lot of triggers that have to do with parents, maybe don't watch it because the verbal abuse is pretty bad.
That's our thoughts on Saving Face. If you want to send us a voice message on Anchor, there'll be a link in the description to do so. We also have an Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, which are at MidTakesPod, which will also be in the link in the description. And that's everything. So, goodbye.